Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is ILEANA from Phoenix on the Rise, a women's empowerment company that helps women lead richer and more empowering and happy lives by connecting to their higher selves, as well as participating in a community of like-minded individuals. Today, we have another conversation with a courageous woman. And I'm super excited to introduce you to a friend and energy therapist with whom I did some life-changing work a few years back. The theme we're working with today is the healer's journey. And as you'll know, as we go through the conversation, the healer's journey is often not a straightforward one. Sometimes it takes roundabouts and it's circuitous and it meanders a lot, but eventually you do get there. So I hope you enjoy this. Today I'm talking to Yvonne GUENTHER. Yvonne was born in Stuttgart, Germany, but her path was both exciting and meandering through 5 continents and 9 countries. Yvonne and I share this wanderlust together, having very similar lifestyle. I've been through 3 continents and 12 countries, so we're both still counting the number of countries that we're going to. Who knows where we'll go next? I met Yvonne when I lived in Malaga, Spain for some time, and we did some work together at that point, and then we continued the work remotely when I went back to Canada for a while. Yvonne is a licensed acupuncturist, yoga and Reiki teacher, and emotion code practitioner. As a holistic healer, she incorporates various therapies to bring about balance to her clients' lives using a mind, a body, spirit approach. All the modalities she uses, she has experienced on herself firsthand. So, welcome, Yvonne.
Hello, nice to see you again.
Thank you. So good to have you here. Finally, because we've been talking about this for a while.
We did indeed, yes.
We're finally making it happen. So,
the internet makes it happen.
Yes, for sure, for sure. This is the way to go now, right? At least I can talk to people all over the world and have other people all over the world see it. So that's the cool part about it. Because you're in Vietnam right now, and I'm in Malta.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, Zoom. Okay, so let's start. I want to talk to you a little bit about your youth. You said that you were born and raised actually in a very high control religion, but that was not where you wanted to be, right? What did you dream about when you were a young person going through this kind of lifestyle?
Well, to be honest, because I grew up in it, I was born in it, my whole family, uncle, aunts, grandma, grandpa, all lived through or in the same religion. We all had the same religion. It was normal to me growing up like this. And so I look back and feel more like I grew up very protected and sheltered. But of course, you know, there was like no TV allowed, no circus allowed. There was things that was like the devil, the devious part of the world. But because it was my life since I was a baby, I also had these friends and lifestyles in church. So I didn't really miss out too much. My parents were quite open-minded, but the older I grew, the more I felt like something isn't right. Something isn't exactly fully me. And questions arise, and you know, you see people preaching one thing, doing one thing, being quite not following the path of the words, not being congruent. So it wasn't something, like you also said, like it wasn't something that just happened overnight. It was just questions arising over and over again, observing other people's friends, school, lifestyle, outside, what's going on, and just feeling like just following the path of God and Jesus and going to church twice and in the evenings and following youth paths and all that didn't fulfill me as I was told I should feel fulfilled. No? And so the biggest breaking point for me was at that moment when I was 18. I went to the United States as a nanny, and I saw how they lived my religion over in the States. And that was like a big, like, this is not how I was brought up, and a big life change, a big eye opener. And that's when I cut the cord. This is like, I'm like, okay, this is not a religion. This is a sect. This is
Cult.
manipulation, a cult. This is controlling. This is nothing to do with the word of God, the Bible, what I grew up with. And so this is basically when I broke the cord, but I was lost because I'm like, okay, because all these, it's like, if you don't go to church, you feel judged by God and then you're punished. And so luckily I had a very good friend. She was following more the Buddhist tradition. So she helped me to stay on a spiritual path without feeling too much guilt upon
Very
having stopped.
spiritual path, right?
Exactly. So I got introduced to other spiritual paths. And I think for me, that was like fantastic because I'm a believer, like especially working with energy now. I believe there's something much bigger than we are, but it doesn't have to have a label. It doesn't have to have the name. And so that's how my journey basically all started, by questioning, but then being thrown out of my comfort zone in a different country, different language, different everything, starting to see, okay, this is not it. No? And so
it's really what propelled you forward into a new direction, and then all these revelations happened and you changed your life.
Exactly.
So that was
so
a big eye-opening.
Huge. I mean, this was like, it's like, I think looking back, it was the biggest eye breaker or like life changer, because due to the religious change, also the change in normal life happened. And so coming back to Germany, it wasn't just anymore the life that I used to live.
So you felt uncomfortable and uneasy, right?
Completely. It wasn't what I was. There was like an Yvonne before and an Yvonne after.
Yes. After the revolution. By your mid-20s, you were working in an office environment and the corporate world. You were making good money. It was a good job, but something was still missing, right?
But this is the thing. It's like I went back to Germany. Yeah, fantastic job, great income, life, friends, evening plans, weekend plans, fantastic family. Like, luckily, I'm very fortunate, even though, let's say, I broke with church.
Yeah.
I still had all the support from my family. There was no hard feelings, which I'm very grateful for.
That's amazing.
I know. And so, but still there was like, it's hard to say what it was, but there was like a hole in my mission. There was something missing that wasn't fulfilled. And no matter what job I did or what friends I've had, what spiritual explorations I did, it was just, there was a void. I think that's the only thing that you can say. There was just something missing.
Yeah. So then at 27, you made a life-changing decision that propelled you, boom, out of Germany.
Well, I didn't know it was such a life-changing decision at the time. Again, because it's like, as I am German and I'm quite structured, but I have these impulses, so something there just with a good friend of mine made us decide to travel around the world for 1 year, leave our job, quit the job, sell what we can sell, and just take the backpack. And back then it was like very common to take a 1 year around the world ticket,
right?
Especially in Germany. But we decided to go on a one-way ticket, one way to Peru. And honestly, it was a one-way ticket of no return, because I still haven't returned to Germany. And that's 21 years ago.
So you intended to go for one, it ended up being 7.
It ended up being 7 years traveling.
And you had all these revelations. I know you and I talked about surrender and having to, just relax into life. Things show up as they need to. The internal guidance kicked in, and you started to learn to trust that, as opposed to trying to control things all the time. which as you're traveling like this, so many things can happen, right? And so many things, as we know, do.
Totally. I mean, it's really, I mean, there is, you know, lonely moments involved, many lonely moments, many moments where you like where to go next, what to do next, how to go on. But that allowed me to trust and see, okay, if it's meant to be, the next opportunity just falls into your lap, just arises, just comes. And so I really had to learn to trust the universe and surrender where I was taken to versus to where I wanted to go to.
So during this period, did you notice, and I'm asking because this has been my experience, did you notice that you were always given what you needed, but not necessarily what you wanted?
Yes. I mean, there were things what I wanted and I just went for it, but it was never as easy in a flow as the things that were meant to be.
Yes, the thing that you really needed to get you to your next step, to your next level. Yeah, that's how beautiful it is when, and you know, some people are like, how could you live out of a suitcase for that period of time? You don't know where you're going, who you're meeting. But that's the beauty and excitement of it, because you're always in that trust mode and you really learn to listen internally, right?
And exactly. And it's like, I guess because I've grew up so sheltered and so protected, that little bit of freedom that I've had by just being out in the world and going where I want to and things coming my way became my addiction almost. And that's why I traveled for so long, because it was just easy for me at this, I know, like hard moments, but easy enough to keep going, you know? And not giving up on this freedom, on this lifestyle of giving me what helps me to grow into a much better version of myself than I could have ever imagined.
Well, there's also, you know, this is why I call it courageous women, because this takes a lot of courage to be able to live like this, especially for women who are raised to be sheltered and to be in the shadow of a man or in the shadow of the church, or not to put themselves out there. But this takes a huge amount of courage and trust, and you grow through that because you also develop resilience and you know how to discover resources and you start to connect with people and you just exponentially grow. So it's just a really beautiful experience.
And taking risks, and at the same time, it's following your intuition as well. It's like trusting that little voice that says, don't go down this street, but go down that street, you know? And I have so many beautiful encounters by just at the airport meeting people where I've then spent the next 6-7 weeks in their house and with them together. And if I needed a job, I'm like, okay, until that day, and then I have to leave. And then because I decided to do this instead of that, or it rained and then this happened and that happened, circumstances led me to exactly the person that gave me the next opportunity, the next thing that was meant to be.
The next thing that opened, the next door that opened.
Exactly. And sometimes really an hour before buying the bus ticket, or an hour or a day before I had to make a decision. And this trust of allowing me to be who I am and to do what I want, I'm often connecting and tapping back into now having a more, let's call it normal life again, with a job and a routine and, you know, like an apartment and rent to pay. It's like, okay, is this where I'm meant to be? Are things flowing? Am I hitting my head against the wall and it's just me trying to do something, or is it really where I'm meant to be? And so, you know, and I came from a corporate world. So for me, these 7 years of traveling has really led me to trust that I'm taken care of.
Yes, beautiful. That's how I look at it too. Like, no matter what happens, I will be taken care of. And it's a deep knowledge inside, right? It's not in your head, it's really in your heart, in your whole body, and it kind of drives everything. And you know, even when there's stress, you're like, okay, you know what? I just need to step back a bit and listen inside, and the answer will come. The opportunity will come, the phone call, the person, the message. Yeah, it's really lovely.
It's taken care of. And I mean, taken care of is not that someone gives me $5,000 every time I need it. It's the shelter that I needed, the next job, a better opportunity, food, anything that has kept me going on and being not alone and not an orphan to God, actually, you know. So,
it's keep you going, and I guess the trust gets stronger and stronger, right? As the years go by and you're taken care of more and more, you know it's there. There's no more doubt. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
part. So
I mean, sometimes we get sidetracked, but
yes.
Luckily, I have 7 years of traveling and experience that keep it strong enough to pull me back.
Yes, for sure. And then sometimes very interesting things happen. So let's talk a little bit about the big turning point in your life when you went to study yoga and Thai massage in a village in Thailand, because something significant propelled you. And sometimes spirit does this to us. We are propelled on a particular path we're not expecting in the most strange ways that we would never think of from our logical left brain. So tell us that story, because I love that story.
Well, I think so. What I know now is like I'm a very open channel. Like I'm in the therapy world. It's like they call it the healer, the channel, and so I've always been like this. And I think this is where that little voice in Germany told me leave, because I couldn't have developed what I am doing now in this sheltered lifestyle that I've had.
Exactly.
So I've had this connection to the universe, to this spirit, to my open channel forever. But being German in the corporate world, I didn't know that this is what's part of me. And so through travel experiences, I decided, being in Thailand, of course, I want to learn and do Thai massage. No, it's like this thing, and I love working with my hands, and it's something I can take wherever I go and can offer it and trade. You know, for me, my mind was always like, what can I trade? Where can I give something in order to receive, you know, energy exchange? So I went to this Thai massage school, which I loved the idea of being in a village, out in the hill tribe villages of Thailand. We woke up in the mornings, 5 o'clock, we practiced yoga, we had food from the locals cooked, and then we had all day long Thai massage, which of course opens all your channels, all your meridians. Everything is just, there's no Wi-Fi, there is no electrosmog, there's just pure energy flowing. And in those 2 weeks, I loved it. I had a fantastic time. Life was good. But about 2-3 weeks later, I became severely ill, super ill. And I had symptoms all over the place. Fever, diarrhea, vomiting, and so on and so on. You know, things you first in these countries, you think it's malaria or dengue and so on. Nothing, no diagnosis of the doctor. And it was really like, eventually I had to have intravenous nutritions because none of the antibiotics worked.
You were losing,
and they just
were wasting away.
Completely waste, and they couldn't find out what it was, the doctors.
Right.
And on my way to the Thai massage school, in the bus, I met a woman, and she told me, if you ever have anything and you need healing done, go and see this woman with this phone number. And I've never seen this woman again. And I've had this phone number somewhere in my little notebook. So I called her. I called this woman, and she was kind of like my last, because I believe in energy work. I grew up with a mother who's given us lots of that kind of ideas of growing up. And so I called, her name is Corey. I called Corey and I said, look, I need to come and see you, blah, blah, blah. This is my story. And so I went there, and she does an energetic healing therapy that combines 5 different Asian techniques in one. Chinese medicine, kinesiology, Reiki, all in one technique. And after 3 sessions, I was perfectly well. everything was just, all the symptoms gone, my energy was back. And I told her, I'm like, okay, so what happened? And she's like, I don't know what happened, but basically your light was on, but your spirit gone. Like something was completely disconnected between body and mind. And she recommended me to learn Reiki. This is how all of this started. She's like, you need to learn Reiki for whatever happened to protect yourself. And so I learned Reiki to protect myself. Of course, the universe had many other plans for me what to do with this Reiki later on in those years. But I learned it initially to protect myself. And in the course, we started talking, of course, more and more details. And I found out, because she's been living in Thailand and in this place for 30 years, that in this village that I did the Thai massage course, they practice black magic.
Right.
Because there is a
you were attacked by that kind of a force, and because you were not protected in a totally open channel, you were hit really hard, and you could have possibly died.
Completely. I was basically their victim. I was the one that just said, okay, take me. No?
Right. But Spirit had other plans for you, and then so you learned Reiki and you became a Reiki teacher. And
no, not yet, actually. I only learned Reiki to protect myself. And then, of course, I was still the traveler, and I used the Reiki on myself, and then people heard I do Reiki, and so they started saying, give me Reiki, and I'm like, not much faith in myself and my healing skills. I've done it because as a traveler, it helped me to exchange with a massage, a haircut, food, living. So I used it as a trade.
Yes, a barter system.
Exactly, to barter. And but I still took a detour in the healing. So I had my Thai massage, I had my Reiki, but I became a dive instructor because that's what I wanted. My Yvonne mental mind wanted me to become a dive instructor.
Oh, it's fun anyway, right?
It was great. I learned a lot, taking authority, you know, speaking in front of people. Great detour, amazing detour. But I couldn't do the healing because it's just a very difficult job and takes your energy out. But due to the diving, I eventually ended up in Mexico.
In Mexico, okay.
And so from the Philippines to Mexico, and that's where I started, okay, this is not my profession. And I stopped being a diver. I got introduced in the yoga community, and there people just loved having someone that learned Reiki in Asia. You know, it's like we speaking 15, 20 years ago, there was like this big movement going on. So
yeah.
Exactly. And so I was the Reiki chick in Playa del Carmen.
You were a hot
and they had all this trust in me. They had all this faith, that they had all this confidence in my healing abilities where I didn't. But life in Mexico is full of energy. People trust that energy work is just, it's part of their roots.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to completely dive into healing, into therapies, into giving. And from there, people heard that I am a Reiki practitioner, so they wanted to learn because they liked how it felt. And that's how I ended up becoming a Reiki teacher.
So you were like a reluctant healer, right?
Completely. I did not believe in myself at all, at all. I'm like, what do you mean I put my hands on you and you feel better? Are you really, you sure? But it's just...
You got some people in Mexico really helped, right?
Yes, and because I have this open channel and this energy that just kept flowing through me, I've had this gift that I was allowed to start living in Mexico, and the people were so open for it, and they were so kind and so receiving and so open for it. It helped me to accept that this is what I have to do. This is where I need to be. This is what my mission, the void that I was looking for in Germany
was starting to fill.
Exactly. exactly.
So it's
And
interesting, you lived in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, which is on
yes,
the coast, and I lived across the strait in Cozumel for a
I think
while.
he was at the same time, no?
No, I think we were a few years apart because I was there in
Okay.
2008, 2009, and I think you were there before that. But it's very interesting how some of our travels have kind of combined, and then of course we met in Malaga. So this is why I love your journey. Like it's, how to protect yourself by learning the Reiki, and then you went to Mexico and people are like, oh, you're a Reiki practitioner. Can you teach me? Can you do this? And you're like, okay.
Yes, I was thrown into the deep end. Whatever I've learned, whatever technique I've practiced now, like you said, is something that helped me initially. That's the only way how I can be congruent in the giving.
Yes, yes.
But I've always almost learned it only to practice it on myself.
Yes.
And then people had all this faith in me that no, this is what you need to help me with. And so I've always been thrown in the deep end of them. I've always just learning by doing, really learning by doing.
Which takes a lot of courage too, because you're doing by learning, it's steep, right? It takes courage and it takes resilience, and it does take inner faith. You're just sometimes not aware of it. But you just
and I mean, yes, and learning, trusting that this is the next step where you have to go, and I have to put bread and butter into my fridge. So I'm like, okay, let's use this and make some money off it, and so it was just, okay, this is the next step. This is the next step. I trust in you. And really the Reiki teacher, I've only wanted to learn from a teacher how to use crystals in the Reiki.
Yeah.
Because in the yoga community, people wanted to learn how to balance chakras. And I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. And this teacher decided, no, I need a teacher assistant. You need to become a teacher. And I'm like, okay, so I became, under the perspective, I become a Reiki assistant, and then someone heard I'm a teacher and they wanted a course, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to teach,
Yeah.
So it's
done. Yeah. Next step.
Yes. And so that's how it all happened. And that's how.
That is so cool. I love this. So let's talk about the emotion code now, because this is the modality I am most familiar with. This is the work that you and I did in Spain. So just to introduce our audience, I read this book by Dr. Nelson, where he describes how it works and how it's tested. So I wanted to read it all because I wanted to understand the mechanics of it. And then, of course, you and I did work together, and we did it in person, and then we did it remotely. And it was, for me, it was definitely life-changing. It was over a period of a few months. We uncovered a lot of garbage and got rid of a lot of garbage, and it made a really huge difference. So let's talk a little bit about the emotion code, what it is, how it works, how you work remotely, and so on.
I mean, the emotion code came as well into my life in Spain, and again at a breaking point that allowed me to really release and break old habits and patterns that just kept coming back, that I used to work with or tried to work with. And the emotion code it's decoding emotions. So it's again, it's hard to speak about something that we can't see with the eyes, I always say. It's something that should almost be experienced, because if I tell you I detect an emotion and we release it and this changes your life, it's like, what are you talking about? No?
Yeah.
But in this technique, we use something called muscle testing, kinesiology, which is the language of the subconsciousness. So the subconsciousness, I say, is like, it's an external hard drive that knows everything about us. From the moment we're born, even before, everything that's written down, the way we lived our life, the conversations we had, any word, any experiences.
That anchors into the Akashic record, where everything is.
Exactly. And so these informations are there, but our cognitive mind, through the experiences we had, tries to protect us and forgets and doesn't allow us this access. But muscle testing is exactly that translator. It's that language between mind and body, basically spirit and body. And so we use the technology of, or we use the concept of kinesiology to talk to the subconsciousness to detect what we call trapped emotions. So when we live our life and we don't process what has happened, these emotions have like a residue, an emotional garbage, like you say, a baggage.
And they get stuck in our bodies.
And they stuck in our energetic field. And because emotions have vibrations and frequencies, they act like a magnet. So when I have the frustration or the bitterness or the unworthiness anchored in my energetic field, they are magnets to attract the same emotion with situations that, of course, prove me right. They make me feel like this. And from an emotion lived continuously, a habit is created. And from the habit, a belief. And then this is what I think is my truth. And it's my life and it's my story. And so it's a big...
rigid and stuck.
Exactly. So this is stuck and trapped.
Yeah, when I read his book, he was talking about helping people with their physical symptoms. But he realized that there were emotions trapped in the body that were not allowing the body to heal itself. And that's how he kind of came to discover this whole modality.
Because he's a chiropractor. So that's how he, exactly. People came back with the same issue. And once he started talking more emotions, he realized they keep having the same emotion response. No? And so this is just
traumatized, right? People who have been traumatized.
Totally. Yes.
They have a lot of emotion around certain things that happened, and continually that keeps coming back unless it's cleared. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is like this is why he calls it trapped emotions. It's unprocessed emotions or processed that have been emotions that have been processed, but there's still a resonance. So we live in this law of attraction, and so we live basically, or the emotions are speaking through us now, but they are telling us what happened in the past. So we keep living in the past by what we are attracting in the now. And so in the emotion code, the idea is, and it's due to research, there's a special meridian that we have, which is also the meridian where all the DNA is stored when we are born. This is where basically, DNA is written, and it's called the governor meridian. And because everything is energy, we have plus minus. So we have magnets, we have the intention, and that multiplies. So magnetic energy multiplies an intention. No? And so the idea is through this muscle testing and emotion charts, we basically detect which emotion is part of root causing associated to what we're working on. And then once this is found, we might need to know what age it was trapped, and then we just release it. It's like an energetic surgery. We release it with this magnetic energy out of your field.
I remember when we did our work together, you were able to pinpoint certain ages where things happened that were so incredibly accurate. It was astounding to me, but of course, because you're speaking to the unconscious mind. So,
exactly. So I'm the translator to your conscious mind. It's like and the subconscious is linear, like a computer. It's right, left, up, down. So you have to ask a yes/no question. No? Is there a trapped emotion contributing to what we're working on? Yes. Okay. Is it in this chart or in this chart? And so we are filtering.
Right.
And we have to find that one emotion that makes it most of it right now.
Yeah.
And then if we need to know when it happened, then the subconsciousness lets us know what age this was trapped and why it's still active. And then we just
talk about it a little bit, and then that helps release it even more.
Exactly.
Into consciousness, but it's not always necessary. Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing. I also work with men, and men have no clue about their emotion. Maybe
unfortunately
most of the time, it's like you ask him, how are you? I don't know. No? I'm okay. Or people who are traumatized, rape, childhood abuse, misconduct, anything. you forget. So we don't need it. This is why I love this technique, and it helped me so much. Because of my childhood upbringing, I forgot many things. I had a blueprint. I knew what's going on and where my problems are and because of who, but nothing has ever changed. And with this, I did not need to go into the story. I didn't need to rebirth myself or recry or hid into the pillow or go to the cemetery and have a duel with my grandmother. I just had to detect the emotion. We found the age, we released it.
Yeah.
And that emotion with that magnetic frequency was taken care of.
Now, sometimes you do become emotional as you go through the process because your body naturally needs to release that energy, but you don't have to relive the trauma. You don't have to discuss it. You don't have to do anything like that. That's why it's very gentle in many ways. And I benefited from it so much. And you and I worked remotely because, of course, we're connected to the quantum field and everything is energy, and you can connect subconsciously to my own subconscious, and it works very well. So I don't have to be with you to do the muscle testing. That's the other really beautiful part of it. Wow, thank you so much. It was just really lovely talking to you. So I'm going to post about where everyone can get a hold of you. When you reach out to Yvonne, please let them know you saw this video and that you were really interested, and she'll talk to you about going forward. It's very exciting.
I mean, the emotion code can help you in about anything.
Yes.
And it's very complex. So if they have any more questions, it's a big subject. I'm happy to answer any questions they have.
Yes, so I'll post everything on how they can reach you. And yeah, thank you so much. Yvonne.
I would say come to Vietnam, but the borders are closed.
Yeah, no, right. Vietnam is not a good time right now. Maybe your next destination. Such a great time talking to you. All of my best, Yvonne. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me the space to allow myself to connect to all these beautiful women.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.